I'm Emily. My husband Tom died suddenly from a brain aneurysm at 40, grieving and struggling financially. I worked night shifts and used rideshares. Driver Marcus supported me while neighbor Harlan secretly stalked me with hidden cameras. Marcus gathered proof, saved me. Harlan got 12 years. Now I'm safe and help others. Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe. Get ready for real emotional and thrilling stories from Black adults that will keep you hooked till the end. 6 months ago, my entire world fell apart in the space of a single phone call. I was at the grocery store holding a carton of Tom's favorite coffee creamer when my cell rang. It was the hospital. Tell my Tom, the man I'd been laughing with. Me over breakfast just that morning had collapsed at work, a sudden brain aneurysm. By the time I got there, he was already gone. He was only 40. We both were. Now I live in the echo of that day. Our little house on a quiet cul-de-sac outside Seattle still looks the same from the outside. Pale blue siding, white trim, the maple tree we planted together the year we moved in. But inside, everything feels hollow. The couch still has the indentation where Tom used to sit while he read his mystery novels. His coffee mug is still in the dish rack because I can't bring myself to put it away. Some nights, I catch myself setting 2 plates on the table before I remember. The bills didn't stop coming just because my heart did. Mortgage, utilities, the medical expenses that insurance wouldn't fully cover, they piled up like unspoken accusations. I had to do something. My day job as an administrative assistant wasn't enough anymore, so I took a night shift at a warehouse 20 miles away. Stocking shelves from 6 p.m. to 2 a.m., scanning barcodes, lifting boxes until my back ached. It pays better, and overtime helps chip away at the debt, but it leaves me bone-tired and driving home in the darkest hours. I sold Tom's car to cover some of the funeral costs, so now I'm dependent on rideshare apps to get home. Those 2 a.m. pickups feel like stepping into another world. Empty streets, wet pavement reflecting streetlights, the occasional siren in the distance. Most drivers barely speak, which was fine by me at first. I just wanted to get home, shower off the warehouse dust, and fall into bed before the sun came up. Then, one rainy November evening, Marcus Reed pulled up in his stark gray sedan. The app had matched us before, but this was the first time I really noticed him. Mid-40s, neatly trimmed beard going gray at the edges, wearing a simple navy jacket. He greeted me softly as I slid into the back seat, soaked from the dash through the rain. "Rough night out there," he said, glancing at me in the rearview mirror. His voice was calm, unhurried. "Yeah, I managed, wiping rain from my face. Feels like it hasn't stopped raining since ... well, for a while." He nodded like he understood more than just the weather. We talked about small things, the best 24-hour coffee spots, how the city looks different at this hour, quieter somehow. Nothing deep, nothing personal, but there was something steady about him. No rushing to fill the silence, no prying questions. Just a quiet presence that felt ... safe, like a small anchor in the middle of everything that kept trying to pull me. And ... he dropped me off at the house, waiting until I was inside before pulling away. I remember standing in the doorway, watching his taillights disappear down the street, feeling a tiny flicker of warmth I hadn't expected. What I didn't know, what I couldn't have known, was that someone else was watching those same taillights. Across the street, behind the curtains of the identical house opposite mine, Harlan Brooks stood at his living room window. He'd been there for a while, long enough to notice patterns, when my porch light came on when the rideshare car arrived. How long it stayed. His eyes narrowed as Marcus's car turned the corner. The rain kept falling, drumming against the windows, but Harlan didn't move. He'd just watched, the glow from his computer screen casting shadows across his face, and in that moment, as I locked the door behind me and leaned against it, exhausted, I had no idea that the quiet after my personal storm was about to become something far more dangerous. Those first rides with Marcus started to feel like a routine I could count on. Something solid in the quicksand of my days. After that rainy night, the app kept matching us, maybe because I rated him 5 stars every time. Or perhaps it was just luck. His profile popped up like clockwork. Marcus Reed, 4.9 stars from hundreds of rides. Comments praising his safe driving and friendly vibe without being pushy. In a world where late-night drivers sometimes made my skin crawl with awkward stares or blaring talk radio, Marcus was different, reliable, a quiet constant. I started tipping extra. Not just the app suggested amount, but 20, sometimes $30 S. cash handed through the partition. For keeping me company in the witching hour, I'd say with a tired smile. He'd wave it off at first. No need, Emily. Just doing my job, but he'd accept it with a nod of thanks, slipping it into his console. Without fanfare. Our conversations, which began with weather small talk, slowly peeled back layers. I'd slump into the back seat after a shift, the warehouse's fluorescent buzz still echoing in my head, and he'd ask gentle questions that didn't feel invasive. One night, about 2 weeks in, the dam broke a little. Rain sheeted down the windows as we emerged onto the freeway, Seattle skyline a blurry glow behind us. Rough day? He asked, eyes flicking to the mirror. I hesitated, staring at my hands calloused from lifting crates, nails chipped. Not the job, it's everything else. The words tumbled out before I could stop them. My husband Tom, he loved these weekend hikes up in the Cascades. We pack sandwiches, chase waterfalls. Now the bed feels like half a boat, you know? The empty side just mocks me every morning. Marcus was quiet for a beat, the wipers thumping. Rhythmically. I get that emptiness, he said finally, voice low. Lost my sister Clara to cancer 5 years back. She was the fighter type taught me to notice the quiet moments, like these drives when the world's asleep. Makes you cherish him more. He didn't push for details, didn't offer pitying platitudes. Just shared his peace like trading stones. Across a river, it made the ride feel shorter, warmer. By the end of that trip, as he idled at my curb until my porch light flicked on, I realized this was becoming a friendship. Fragile, yes, like a bridge built plank by plank over dark water, but it was there, pulling me out of isolation 1 midnight mile at a time. If only I'd paid more attention across the street. Harlan Brooks lived in the mirror image house opposite ours, a single guy in his late 30s with wire-rimmed glasses and a perpetual 5 o'clock shadow. He'd seemed harmless after Tom's funeral Annie Burley waved from his driveway. Then, the offer to mow my overgrown lawn while I was drowning in arrangements. No trouble at all, Emily, he'd said, voice earnest, pushing that old mower back and forth like a good Samaritan. Tom was a good guy, at least I can do. I thanked him. Profusely, even baked cookies once as a thank you. He was an IT consultant, worked from home, always tinkering with gadgets in his garage. Nice enough in that distant suburban way, but Harlan's kindness was rotting from the inside. Late at night, after my rideshare taillights faded, he'd slip. Out in his hoodie, the suburb silent under a blanket of evergreen shadows. Our cul-de-sac was dead quiet post-midnight, no dogs barking, no traffic, just the hum of distant freeways. He'd kneel by my recycling bins at the curb, gloved hands, sifting through the blue bin like an archaeologist. Pizza boxes from my solo dinners, junk mail with my full name and address, and bank statements I'd shredded poorly. Piece by piece, he reconstructed my life. Shift schedules scribbled on napkins. Reminders for Tom's life insurance payout, even a crumpled grocery list craving his and hers FAVOURITES back in his dimly lit living room. Curtains drawn tight, Harlan spread it all on his coffee table. His laptop hummed beside a sketch pad, where he'd begun drawing obsessively floor plans of my house, not guesses. Details he'd glimpsed through windows or during that one quick fix when I asked him to reboot my router after a storm. Living. Room layout, kitchen counters, and the upstairs bedroom with its sloped ceiling. Arrows marked entry points, notes on lock types. She needs protection, he'd mutter to himself, tracing lines with a pencil that trembled slightly. The calm facade of our neighborhood manicured lawns, minivans, and driveways hid this perfectly. No one saw the man across from the grieving widow piecing her into his private map as Marcus became my beacon. Harlan's fixation bloomed in secret. And me? I was too lost in grief and exhaustion to notice the eyes in the dark, watching my every light go out. At first, the little oddities felt like ghosts of my own making, tricks played by exhaustion after those endless warehouse shifts. I'd stumble through the front door at 2:30 a.m., muscles screaming from hauling pallets of canned goods, and collapse into bed without a second thought. Mornings brought the evidence, a kitchen drawer left slightly ajar, silverware peeking out, like it had been rifled through. Or Tom's photo frame on the mantel, tilted just enough to catch my eye, as if someone had brushed past it. Once I found my favorite coffee mug on the wrong shelf, facing backwards. Fatigue brain, I'd mutter, shoving things back into place. Grief does that, right? Makes the world feel unsteady, like you're always one step from unraveling, I mentioned. it to Marcus during one of our rides about a month into our routine. The car hummed along rain-slicked roads, dashboard lights casting a soft blue glow. Ever feel like your house is off? Like things move when you're not looking? He glanced back, thoughtful. Happens in old places. Or maybe just need a good night's sleep. You okay otherwise? Yeah, I lied, forcing a laugh. Just my imagination. But deep down, unease whispered. Nights when I woke at 3 a.m. convinced I'd heard a floorboard creak upstairs. Shadows in the hallway that vanished when I flicked the light. I chalked it up to Tom's absence. Our house was built in the 80s, full of settling noises and drafts. Still, I started double-checking locks, even though the suburb was safe as houses. Little did I know how wrong that was. Harlan Brooks had played his part perfectly. A couple of weeks after the funeral, my Wi-Fi crapped out during a storm. Heavy winds knocked out power, and when it came back, nothing connected. I'd seen him in his driveway, fiddling with routers, so I waved him over. Hey, Harlan, you're the tech guy. Mind taking a quick look? He bounded across the street like a puppy, toolkit in hand. Charming, efficient, reset the modem, checked. Cables of an optimist my speed. While I brewed coffee as thanks, he noticed my spare key hanging by the door, safer in a lockbox. He suggested innocently and pocketed the chance to duplicate it later at a hardware store. No harm, no foul. Or so I thought. That key unlocked more than doors. Harlan's basement was his sanctuary, a dimly lit cave lined with monitors and tangled cables. Using his IT wizardry, he slipped in during my shift's silent entries, rubber soled. Shoes muffling steps. Tiny smart cameras, no bigger than shirt buttons, went into vents, behind bookshelves, even the frame of a ceiling fan. Wireless, battery-powered, streaming HD feeds straight to his setup. Motion-activated night vision for those dark hours. Suddenly, I was his unwitting star, months of footage piled up. Terabytes of my raw life absorbed over Tom's old love letters. From our honeymoon, my scar-streaked face crumpled on the living room floor. Pacing the kitchen at midnight, calculator in hand, tallying bills that never shrank. Showering after shifts, towel drying my hair, oblivious to the lens and the vent overhead. Undressing in the bedroom, folding clothes with mechanical sadness. Harlan watched it all, replaying favorites on loop. The thrill hit him like a drug control over the beautiful widow next door, her vulnerabilities laid bare. She's breaking, he'd whisper to the screen, heart racing. But it wasn't enough. He craved proximity, real interaction. Journals filled with plans. Approach soon, offer more help. Marcus almost caught the first whiff that night. Dropping me off under a sliver of moon, he idled at the curb as always, watching my porch light blink on. Across the street, Harlan's window glowed faintly. Their silhouette, unmistakable, Harlan frozen, binoculars pressed to his eyes, trained. Right at my front door, Marcus's hands tightened on the wheel. A chill spider walked down his spine. Every instinct screamed wrongness. Was it just nosiness, or something darker? He snapped a quick, discreet photo from the shadows of his car, blurry but time-stamped before pulling away slowly. No need to alarm Emily yet, he thought, not without solid proof. Better to watch, gather more dot as I waved goodnight from the doorway, locking up tight. The whispers grew louder in my head. Unease wasn't imagination. It was a warning, and across the street, Harlan lowered his binoculars, smiling into the dark. The unease I'd been brushing off started to feel heavier, like a weight pressing on my chest every time I stepped inside the house. Little things kept happening, a light left on that I was sure it switched off, the faint smell of unfamiliar cologne lingering in the hallway. I told myself it was nothing, but my sleep grew shallower, broken by every creak of the old beams. Thursday night in early December, the words finally spilt out in Marcus's car. Rain hammered the roof as we crawled through traffic, windshield wipers fighting a losing battle. I leaned forward from the back seat, voice barely above the storm. Double quotes, Marcus. Do you ever get the feeling someone's watching you? Like really watching? He met my eyes in the mirror, expression calm but alert. What kind of watching? I don't know, it sounds crazy. Things move around when I'm at work. Sometimes I swear I hear footsteps upstairs. I keep thinking it's just grief. Messing with my head, paranoia from being alone so much. My voice cracked on the last word. He was quiet for a long moment. It doesn't sound crazy, Emily. Trust your gut. If something feels wrong, it usually is. I laughed it off, nervous, shaky. Probably just tired. Long shifts, you know? But Marcus didn't laugh. His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly, and from that night on, I noticed he lingered a little longer at the curb after I got out. Headlights off, engine idling, watching until I was safely inside. I thought it was sweet, protective, and a big brother. I had no idea he was already gathering evidence. Across the street, Harlan's obsession had crossed into something darker. His basement journal black leather, pages filled with neat, slanted handwriting, was no longer just sketches and schedules. Now it held fantasies, detailed ones. Entries about how Emily was lost without Tom, how she needed someone strong to guide her. Phrases like rescue her from loneliness, show her she's not alone, make her see me. He underlined certain lines 3 times, ink digging into the paper. In his mind, he wasn't a stalker, he was a savior. She just didn't know it yet, using skills honed from years of remote IT support. He'd quietly compromised my email weeks earlier. A phishing link disguised as a warehouse scheduling update I clicked without thinking. Nothing dramatic. No ransom demands, just silent access. From there, he pulled shift calendars, payroll stubs, and even personal notes I'd forwarded to myself about therapy appointments I kept meaning to book. He knew exactly when the house would be empty, down. To the minute, that knowledge let him grow bolder. Late-night entries through the back door, moving silently in socked feet. Adjusting camera angles for better views, leaving microscopic traces I never notice. Each visit fed the fantasy, touching the sleeve of one of Tom's old jackets hanging. In the closet, sitting in my reading chair, breathing in the space that was mine. Marcus saw the first real proof on a foggy Tuesday. After dropping me off, he stayed parked 2 houses down, engine off. At 2:47 a.m., Harlan emerged from his garage in dark clothing, hood up despite the mild weather. He crossed the street quickly, checked my mailbox, pulling out a flyer, photographing the return address on a bill, then slipped around to my backyard gate. Marcus's heart pounded as he raised his phone, zooming in through the mist. Click, click, time-stamped proof. Harlan testing the latch, disappearing behind the fence, night after night. Marcus collected more. Harlan rifling through the recycling again. Harlan wastening motionless in his upstairs window, silhouetted against the glow, staring at my bedroom light until I turned it off. Harlan wassailing himself in with my key while I was miles away lifting boxes under fluorescent lights. Folder on Marcus's phone grew. Dozens of photos, short video clips, all dated and geotagged. Enough to chill anyone's blood. He wrestled with telling me, how do you drop that kind of bomb on someone already carrying so much grief? But the risk was climbing. Harlan wasn't just watching anymore. He was inside my home. Then came the stormy Friday that changed everything. Thunder rattled the windows as Marcus picked me up, lightning flashing across the warehouse parking lot. The drive home felt charged, air thick with ozone and unspoken tension. When we reached the cul-de-sac, rain lashed sideways, turning the street into a river. Marcus pulled over half a block early, killed the lights, and turned to face me fully. "Emily," he said, voice low and deadly serious, "we need to talk. Not here, not in front of the house. I've seen things. Your neighbor, I think he's been in your home." My stomach dropped. The storm roared outside, but inside the car, everything went still. Marcus gripped the wheel, knuckles white. "I have proof. But tonight, you're not going in there alone." Lightning cracked again, illuminating. His face determined, protective, afraid for me. In that moment, I realized the storm wasn't just outside. It had been building around me for months, and it was finally about to break. The storm that night was biblical. Rain lashed the windshield in sheets, thunder rolling like artillery over the suburbs. I climbed into Marcus's car, soaked to the skin, warehouse uniform clinging cold against me, hair plastered to my face. I barely registered anything beyond exhaustion until we reached the cul-de-sac. He didn't slow down at my driveway. Instead, he kept going past the familiar blue siding. Past the porch light I always left on for myself. My heart stuttered. "Marcus, you missed the turn." "I didn't miss it," he said quietly. His hands were tight on the wheel, knuckles pale. "Emily, trust me, don't go home tonight." The words landed like ice water down my spine. I twisted in the seat to look back at my house shrinking in the red glow of his taillights. Everything looked normal. Curtains drawn, maple tree bending in the wind, but his tone told me it wasn't. Where are we going? There's a 24-hour diner off the next exit. We'll talk there. The rest of the drive passed in tense silence, broken only by the rhythmic slap of wipers. My mind raced through every possibility. Had I forgotten to pay a bill? Was the house flooding? Did something happen to the roof in the storm? None of it made sense. He pulled into the half-empty lot of a farm, and none of it made sense. Retro diner called the Beacon, neon sign flickering blue and pink against the downpour. Inside, it smelled of burnt coffee and bacon grease. We took the farthest booth, cracked red vinyl seats under a buzzing fluorescent light. A waitress poured us coffee without asking. Marcus thanked her softly. Only then did he slide his phone. Across the table, screen already unlocked to a photo gallery. Look, he said. But brace yourself. The first picture froze my blood. Harlan, hood up! Standing at my mailbox at 2:51 a.m., flashlight beam catching the edge of an envelope. Next, Harlan at my back gate, hand on the latch, face half lit by the motion light. Then worse Harlan. On my porch, key in the lock, slipping inside my house while I was 20 miles away scanning boxes. Dozens of images, all time-stamped, all taken from Marcus's car after he dropped me off. Some were grainy, some sharp enough to see the glint of small tools and Harlan's pocket tools that looked exactly like the ones used to mount tiny cameras. I swiped, hands shaking. My coffee went cold, untouched. There's more, Marcus said gently. He opened a short video, Harlan in my living room, adjusting something high in the bookshelf right where Tom's old hiking book sat. The angle was wrong for a casual visit. It was deliberate, hidden, realization hit like a punch to the sternum. Every misplaced drawer, every tilted photo, every feeling of being watched, it wasn't grief or fatigue. It was him. Inside my home. Recording me. Watching me cry over Tom's letters, watching me undress, watching me sleep. Tears came fast and hot. I couldn't stop them. Betrayal and violation crashed over me in waves, mingling with a fierce, sudden gratitude that Marcus quiet, steady Marcus had been paying attention when I hadn't. How long, I whispered. Weeks, maybe longer. I started noticing about a month ago, but I didn't want to scare you without proof. Tonight felt different, like he was getting bolder. I pressed my palms to my eyes, trying to hold myself together. He's been in my bedroom, my bathroom. He's seen everything. Marcus reached across the table, not quite touching my hand, just close enough to let me know he was there. You're safe right now. That's what matters. We're going to the police tomorrow first thing. I have everything backed up. Dates, times, and clear shots of him entering with a key. It's enough. I nodded numb. The diner's clock ticked. Loudly above us, 3:17 a.m., where am I supposed to go tonight? My voice cracked. I can't go back there. My place, he said without hesitation. I've got a spare room, deadbolt, good locks. Or a hotel if you'd rather, whatever makes you feel safest. The spare room, I said quickly. A hotel felt too anonymous, too alone. Thank you. God, Marcus, thank you. He gave a small, sad smile. You don't have to thank me for doing the decent thing. We sat there another half hour, piecing it together in low voices. How Harlan must have copied the key that day he fixed my Wi-Fi. How the cameras explained every strange detail I'd dismissed. Harlan wasn't the quiet, helpful neighbor. He was a predator who turned my grief into his private show. Outside, the rain began to ease. Inside, something in me hardened. Fear was still there, roaring, but beneath it burned a new resolve. Tomorrow we'd fight back. Tonight I wasn't going home. Marcus paid the check, held the door for me, and we stepped into the wet electric. Night too unlikely allies against the darkness that had lived across the street all along. Dawn came too soon. I barely slept on Marcus's spare room couch, wrapped in a borrowed blanket that smelled faintly of cedar and coffee. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Harlan's silhouette in my living room, adjusting a camera. But when the first gray light filtered through the blinds, something shifted inside me. Fear was still there, coiled tight, but anger had joined it hot, steady, and useful. Marcus was already up, brewing coffee strong enough to strip paint. We sat at his small kitchen table and made a plan. First thing, police. No waiting, no second guessing. He'd backed up every photo and video to the cloud in a USB drive. We drank one cup, left the rest, and drove straight to the precinct. Detective Laura Kane met us in a plain interview room that smelled of bleach and old paper. Mid-40s, sharp eyes, no-nonsense ponytail. She listened without interrupting as Marcus laid out the timeline and handed over his phone. I watched her face harden with every swipe. Harlan at my mailbox. Harlan letting himself in, Harlan's tools glinting in the dark. When she reached the short clip of him in my living room, her jaw clenched. "This is solid," she said. "I'm getting warrants today. Search of his property, arrest, the works. You did the right thing coming in now." By early afternoon, it was happening. Marcus and I sat in a coffee shop 2 miles away, too wired to go far, too anxious to sit still when Detective Kane called. They'd executed the warrant. I put her on speaker. "You need to prepare yourself, Emily," she said gently. His basement was set up like a control room. Multiple monitors, servers running 24/7, terabytes of footage, all of you. Bedroom, bathroom, kitchen, living room, thousands of hours. We also found notebooks. Detailed plans, how he intended to help you more, isolate you from friends, make himself indispensable. There was even a duplicate key ring-labelled with your address. My stomach lurched. Marcus reached across the table and squeezed my hand. I barely felt it. Harlan was arrested without resistance. Apparently, he just sat on his couch, pale and silent, while officers cuffed him. They removed the hidden cameras from my house the same day, 6 in total. Tiny black spiders pulled from vents and shelves. Each one felt like a violation all. Over again, the charges came fast. Felony stalking, unlawful surveillance, burglary, voyeurism. The prosecutor moved quickly. The evidence was overwhelming. The trial was set for 4 months later. Those months were a blur of statements, evidence reviews, and nights when I still jumped at every creak. Marcus drove me to every meeting, sat in every waiting room, and brought takeout when I forgot to eat. I moved out of the house temporarily, renting a small apartment across town. Packing up felt like fleeing a crime scene that had once been my home. The trial lasted only 5 days. I took the stand on day 3. Walking past Harlan and the defendants. Box was the hardest thing I've ever done. He wouldn't meet my eyes. Good, I told the jury everything, how he'd used my grief as camouflage, how he turned my safest spaces into his stage, how I cried, changed clothes, mourned my husband while he watched and recorded. My voice shook at first, but then it steadied. I wanted them to hear it all. When I described finding out about the cameras, the violation of my most private moments, several jurors looked away, faces tight with anger and disgust. The defense tried to paint Harlan as troubled but harmless, a lonely man who'd never physically hurt me. The prosecutor shredded that in closing. Intent didn't require violence. The harm was already done, guilty on all counts. Sentencing came a month later. The judge, a woman with steel in her voice, didn't mince words. 12 years in prison, mandatory psychological kennels, a lifetime restraining order, sex offender registration, and no possibility of early release without full compliance. Harlan stood motionless as the gavel fell. Outside the courthouse, the air felt different, cleaner, lighter. Marcus was waiting on the steps. He didn't say much, just pulled me into a hug that lasted until I stopped shaking. The neighborhood reeled for weeks. Whispers at mailboxes, shock texts in the community app. The helpful IT guy who mowed lawns was a monster. Some neighbors sent flowers, others avoided eye contact. I didn't blame them, but for me, the verdict was oxygen. Not healing, that would take longer, but justice. A clear line was drawn. What he did was wrong, and the world acknowledged it. My sanctuary had been stolen, but the law gave me back a piece of power. I still had nightmares. I still checked the locks 3 times. But I also had proof that speaking up mattered, that evidence mattered, that one observant person, Marcus, could change everything. Reclaiming my life had officially begun. I couldn't stay in that house another night. The verdict gave me justice, but it couldn't scrub the feeling of Harlan's eyes from the walls. Every vent, every bookshelf, every corner carried the memory of being watched, so I sold it. The Hinedzi Beshatz realtor tried to be gentle. It's a great starter home. Lots of natural light, but I just signed the papers and walked away. The closing felt like exhaling a breath I'd been holding for years. Marcus helped me pack. We boxed up Tom's hiking boots, his old flannels, and the framed photos from our trips to the Olympics. Some things went into storage, some to charity, and a few precious items into the trunk of Marcus's car for the move. The new place was a secure condo downtown, key fob entry. Cameras in the lobby, a doorman who actually noticed who came and went. The first night there, I triple-checked the locks, then sat on the floor of my empty living room and cried not from fear this time, but from sheer relief. I was safe. Finally, safe-out therapy started the following week. Dr. Elena Ramirez had kind eyes and zero tolerance for self-blame. Week after week, we unpacked the layers: Tom's sudden death, the raw grief that left me hollow, and then Harlan's betrayal layered on top like salt in an open wound. She helped me see how he'd weep in his delele, how predators often hide behind smiles and smell favors. I learned to name the shame that wasn't mine to carry. Some sessions I raged. Others I just sat in silence while tears fell. Slowly, painfully, the weight lightened. Marcus became more than the man who drove me home at 2 a.m. He became my friend, my real, chosen family. We started meeting for coffee on Sunday mornings at a little shop near the waterfront. No rideshare app, no tip envelope. Just two people who'd been through something terrible together. He listened when I talked about Tom without changing the subject. He celebrated small victories like the first night I slept without checking the locks. 5 times. When I had panic attacks in grocery stores because someone stood too close, he'd text, "Breathe with me. In 4, hold 4, out 4. He never tried to fix me. He just stayed. Out of the wreckage, something fierce grew. I couldn't change what happened to me, but maybe I could keep it from happening to someone else. I started volunteering at a local women's shelter, leading support groups for survivors of stalking and digital abuse. Then came the workshops, free community classes on home security, spotting hidden cameras, and recognizing red flags and overly helpful neighbors or acquaintances. I taught women how to sweep their homes with cheap RF detectors, how to secure their Wi-Fi, and how to trust their instincts when something felt off. Watching their faces shift from fear to empowerment, that was medicine. Years slipped by. The nightmares faded to occasional shadows. I planted herbs on my condo balcony, adopted a scruffy rescue dog named Scout who alerts at every doorbell but sleeps curled against my side. I hiked again, solo at first, then with new friends. I kept Tom's memory alive without letting it drown me. One quiet evening, 5 years after that stormy midnight revelation, I sat with Marcus on a bench overlooking Puget Sound. The sun was setting, painting the water gold and rose. Scout snored at our feet. Marcus handed me a coffee black, 2 sugars. Just how I like it. You know, I said, I still think about that first ride with you. The rainy night when you talked about late night coffee spots like it was the most normal thing in the world. He smiled softly. Best tip I ever earned. I laughed, but my eyes filled. A $20 bill started all this. One small act of kindness, and it snowballed into everything. You saved me, Marcus. Not just from Harlan from losing. Myself completely. He shook his head. You saved yourself, Emily. I just refused to look away. I looked out at the horizon, the Olympics rising purple in the distance, the same mountains Tom and I used to chase. The grief was still there, quieter now, woven into the fabric of who I'd become. So was the trauma, but so was the strength. That night, driving home alone for the first time in years without scanning rearview mirrors for threats, I understood the truth I now carry with me everywhere, in the darkest suburbs, behind the manicured lawns and drawn curtains. Monsters can hide in plain sight, but so can guardians. Sometimes they appear as quiet men in navy jackets who wait until your porch light comes on. Sometimes they're the women sitting next to you in a support group, ready to share their own stories so you don't feel alone. Vulnerability is not weakness. It's the door through which both danger and rescue can walk, and too am scared, yes. But I'm unbroken. I am proof that even when your world shatters twice, you can gather the pieces, build something new, and stand in the light unafraid. The shadows of suburbia may never fully lift, neither will the allies who step out of them when you need them most. And that, more than anything, is what keeps me whole.